$1,100,000 in boyfriend. Wanted a car, but after a big fight, I spent it all. Now he's angrier than ever, and I don't know how to confess. Original post. He's a full-time student who works part-time in the summer. I have a full-time and part-time job. He studies a lot. We live together and mostly live off my pay while he stretches what he makes in the summer. Neither of us have ever owned a car because it isn't necessary where we live. We both walk or take the public everywhere to save money. In the morning we stop at a corner shop shortly before splitting up for the day. He buys cigarettes and coffee. I buy fruit for my lunch and, on the weekends, lotto tickets. He always makes fun of me for paying the stupid tax. But I figure my indulgence is cheaper and doesn't come with lung cancer. Sometimes I jokingly tell him not to expect a penny when I win. The day I won he answered me with fine, keep it all. It's not like I'm crying over a penny of nothing over here. I showed him I'd won. He stared for a bit, and then dismissively told me I'd probably spent more than that on tickets. In response I asked what I should blow his half on for myself. I was honestly joking at the time, but he suddenly became angrier than I've ever seen him, and I didn't want to admit I'd been kidding because he was so pissed off. It pissed me off. He wants a car, and I don't. He keeps trying to steamroller me, so I'm refusing to share the money. In honesty, I'm willing to spend or save the money for us, but I don't want a car. I won't use a car, and it will keep costing us money in parking and maintenance. After weeks of him sulking and lecturing me about his entitlement to the money, he took me to a car lot and tried to embarrass me into going along with him in front of a salesman. I threw a tantrum after we left without buying anything, and I went to my mom's and paid our rent up to the end of the year and donated the rest to charity. He doesn't know I fucked up and don't know how to come clean. Teal doctor, I haven't told my boyfriend I spent the money I won because I was upset he was being a dick. He's already angry at me. What should I do? Top comments. Comment 1. I fucked up and don't know how to come clean. I don't think you fucked up at all. Comment 2. Me neither. You spent your money buying the tickets. It's technically your winning money. It's not like you're married. That'd be a little different. He's just mad that he didn't support your buying the tickets in the first place, so now he looks entitled. I think you spent the money very wisely. Plus now he doesn't have to worry about rent. He better not complain. Comment 3. Agree. The only way this would be a fuck up is if OP has a tax bill coming due to the winning with no funds anymore to pay it. Oh OP, no. I rounded down to $10,000 because I was counting after tax and a celebratory dinner. Comment 4. All in all OP, you sound like a very level-headed person. Your boyfriend, on the other hand, sounds like a huge jerk. Why are you with someone who treats you like that? Comment 5. You paid up rent for both of you, or just yourself? OP. It's my place from before dating him. I never ask him for rent because it cost me the same either way. Comment 6. Just to be clear, he's living rent-free and you share finances, meaning you pay for everything unless his part-time money from you? Comment 7. I think you should seriously consider everyone's responses. Your boyfriend does not sound you put into your relationship. That said, do you mean that your dad gave you money when you turned 18 so you could get yourself out of an abusive situation if you had to? Because that's the first I've heard of a parent doing that. But it's seriously an awesome idea. Who keeps saving specifically because they want to have insurance in case of a bad situation, but never a parent initiates that sort of savings. If I ever have children, I'm totally stealing that idea. OP, yeah, my dad sat me down and gave me the grown-up talk about abuse and consent, how to recognize it, what to do, how not to be abusive. Then he gave me the money and explained how to use it. He did this for all his kids, boy or girl. Update. Long story short, a couple months before I won, my boyfriend had secretly dropped out of school to join a Christian rock band. He's not Christian, and began to cover his new co-cabin, which explains so much. He took me winning as a sign they were about to make it and should go on tour. That's why he wanted the car so damn much. Obviously we had a huge fight. I sacrificed a lot because he told me he'd never be happy without that degree, and he threw it away to play rock star while I ground myself down at dead-end jobs. I told him I agreed to support him through one dream, and if he was done with it, I was going after my dreams now. He made all kinds of promises to me about how he'll take care of me when he gets famous, but I told him the only promises I cared about were the ones he made when I agreed to help him through school. He broke up with me until I came to your senses. As far as I'm concerned, that's already happened, so I had his brother pick up his stuff. He tried to cause problems with me illegally evicting him, but I reminded him I had some text conversations where he said, your apartment is your problem, and I don't live there anymore, so deal with it. I have no idea if that's legally enforceable, but neither does he. My lease is up in 3 months and I won't have to worry about it after that. It's been really rough accepting he's not the guy I fell in love with anymore, but the way he's been acting has made it a lot easier. I'm mostly angry I sunk so much of my time and money and compromised my future for him. But I guess it's better I found out now instead of later. I got tested in case he cheated or was doing other drugs, and so far so good. I'm also 9,000% sure my ex staged the 3 break-ins we had in our apartment after one of his friends told me around that time my then BF was trying to sell my prescriptions and his laptop that I ended up replacing FFS that were supposedly stolen. I told the cops and his friend agreed to make a statement, but I decay what's happening with that yet. Other than that, I'm happy to report I'm only working one job now that's actually something I want to do and pays way more. My apartment is much nicer without his junk, and now the toilet is never unflushed and the seat is always down, so I've got that going for me too. With all my free time, I've rescued a kitty and I'm learning to knit. I was planning on becoming an old cat lady, but I also went on my second first date ever. It was with another woman, which was kind of a surprise but also somehow not. We've got a second date planned and I'm incredibly giddy with anticipation, which is really nice. Oh, and I told my dad how much you liked his dump him fun consent conversation, and he said his grandma gave him one when he decided to get married at 18, not my mom. So he can't take credit for the idea. Edit. Thanks for all the well wishes, everyone. Teal.tr. Boyfriend dumped me. Can't complain. Top comments. Comment 1. Sorry he turned out to be such a heel. Getting dumped is never fun, but bullet was definitely dodged here. My apartment is much nicer without his junk, and now the toilet is never unflushed and the seat is always down, so I've got that going for me, which is nice. Comment 2. Being dumped is never fun, but I think in Op's case, it's the best thing have happened to her, lol. And can't forget, with all my free time, I've rescued a kitty, yay to rescue animals. Comment 3. Entitled a coke addict, a thief, etc., etc. What a complete pile of human garbage. Congratulations on getting rid of him. Enjoy doing you, Op. Comment 4. Lol, and wanted to be in a Christian rock band. Hilarious when you consider all of those factors together. Comment 5. The toilet is never unflushed. The fuck? Did he not flush? Oop, not usually. Which made it so much more lovelier that time I forgot to check the seat and fell in. Comment 6. Yay kitty cat. Also, while this all really sucked for you to live through, I am sure that it will be the most delightful of anecdotes. Dropped out of school to join a Christian rock band is just about the dumbest life plan I can think of, especially given the general state of the music industry as a whole, and of Christian rock in particular. Oop, it's very unlike him. I thought he was messing with me until he showed me the videos. Not good. IDK if coke explains all of what's going on. There may be other drugs I don't know about. He's not the same as when we met, I know that much. I posted an update to Rish relationships after asking for advice, and someone recommended I make sure I can't get in legal trouble over the situation. I live in CA and have had my apartment for 4 years. My ex lived with me for 3 years. He never paid rent or was on the lease. My landlord knew he was there, and he got mail there. My lease is up in 3 months, and I'm planning on moving. He left willingly, and when I texted him about some damage he'd done to the building that he promised our landlord he'd fix, he sent me 2 texts that I kept copies of saying, your apartment is your problem and I don't live there anymore, so deal with it. He sent his brother to my place to pick up some music equipment, and I had his brother take all his stuff with him. My ex texted me angrily about how I couldn't just illegally evict him, but backed off when I sent him screenshots of the texts. Also, the police are currently investigating him for 3 break-ins to my apartment when he lived there based on one of his friends making a statement that he tried to sell him my prescriptions and his laptop around that time. I don't know if that's relevant. Could he cause me any legal problems? Now to the next story. Story 2. I-29 meters. Think that my girlfriend, 26F, is only with me because she can't be with her best friend. 26 meters. Should I just end the relationship? Sorry for the long post. I didn't realize how much I had to say until I got it all typed out. Thanks in advance to anyone who reads all this. I've been with my girlfriend Jordan for a little over 2 years. We live together, and we have 2 cats. Up until this weekend, I genuinely thought everything was perfect in our relationship, which I know is what everyone says in these posts. That I was going to ask her to marry me sometime in the next year. we don't ever get into arguments. Easygoing and normally, we just mesh well on everything. Honestly, if everything in our relationship hadn't been, now I probably would have just broken up with her this weekend. But because things have truly been so perfect, I'm not sure if maybe I'm jumping to the wrong conclusion about what to do because my feelings got hurt. The other person who's important in this story is Jordan's friend Mark. She's known Mark for their whole lives because they both grew up in the same small religious community. Jordan isn't part of that religion anymore. She decided to leave the church when she was, I think, 19 and moved to the state that we live in now. Mark still is in the religion and apparently takes it really seriously. I'm told he now works for the church back in Jordan's hometown. Also, as far as I know, Mark is the only person from the religious community that Jordan still talks to, besides her parents, which I'm mentioning because I now think it could be a red flag. So on Saturday I met Mark for the first time because he was in our city and Jordan wanted us all to have dinner together. At this point I want to say, I will admit that when we were first dating, I found out that Jordan had a best friend who was a guy I didn't really like, especially because it seemed like they were on FaceTime with each other a lot. But since it was a childhood friend and they mostly didn't see each other in person, I just trusted Jordan that Mark was only a friend and didn't let it bother me, and eventually I got over it. So when we were going to dinner, I wasn't jealous or suspicious of Mark at all. If anything, I was somewhat excited to finally be meeting him since I've been hearing about him for 2 years. But then the way Jordan and Mark acted at dinner is what convinced me that there's something going on there other than just being best friends. I honestly don't even know how to describe it except to say that I've never seen two people act more obviously like they were in love with each other. They literally would not stop touching each other. They were constantly touching each other's arms and shoulders, and at some points they were actually even holding hands. They completely left me out of the conversation and were laughing about inside jokes, and every time they'd laugh, they'd do this thing where they put their foreheads together, or that was when they'd be holding hands. And then also they were just looking at each other in a way that I didn't feel comfortable with at all. It was honestly even worse than the touching. It just wasn't how anyone would look at somebody they're supposedly just friends with. I'm 100% sure that every stranger looking at our table thought that Jordan and Mark were the couple and that I was her brother or something. I felt like a third wheel the whole time, and Jordan didn't even notice how awkward she was making it for me because she was way too focused on Mark and all the attention she was getting from him. And that's really not like Jordan at all. Usually she's a lot more considerate and would notice immediately if I wasn't having a good time or if she was accidentally being rude and excluding someone at the table. So it was genuinely really jarring to be sitting there with her and Mark and basically feeling like I didn't know my girlfriend at all. It was like he turned her into a completely different person who didn't even care that I was alive. So finally at one point, when Jordan got up to go to the bathroom, I just said to Mark, "So are you into my girl? Or what's going on here?" Mark, "Nothing's going on at all. That ship sailed a long time ago." Me, "What does that mean? Did you guys date at some point?" Mark, "No, we never did." And then when she left the church, we both knew it meant that we were never going to, and we've accepted being in each other's lives as friends. There's nothing else going on at all. Me, "That makes it sound like the only reason you're not together is because she left the church." And all Mark did was shrug. Me, "Well, what if she came back to the church? Would you marry her?" Mark, "Oh, she's not going to do that. You might as well ask what would happen if a bicycle had 6 tires." And so then when Jordan came back to the table, Mark said to her, "Oh, he wants to know if we'd be married if you weren't a godless heathen." Jordan, "Why did you two call your mom while I was gone?" And then she and Mark both just laughed about it and changed the subject. So because of dinner and that conversation and everything else that I've written about in this post, I really feel like Jordan and Mark are in love with each other and not just best friends like they say. And the only reason they aren't together is because they can't compromise about their religion. I think Jordan thinks that because she's okay with that decision, she expects me to be okay with being her second choice. And in the meantime, she's actually secretly wanting to be with Mark. So that makes me think that I should probably obviously just have self-respect and break up with her because I shouldn't be in a relationship with someone who would rather be with somebody else. But then the problem for me is that our relationship has been so perfect and Jordan has always treated me so well, except for this one night. The only time she's ever acted like this was on the one occasion that Mark was around in person. Normally, even when she's talking to him all the time, she's never made me feel this way. So on the one hand, I'm wondering if maybe it doesn't matter what Jordan's feelings are for Mark, as long as he isn't going to be around. It doesn't actually seem to affect our relationship. So maybe I just need to cool off and go back to trusting her that They are indeed only friends, even if it seems to be true that they have complicated feelings for each other. Or should I just end things? Relevant comments. Or Michalski. What did Jordan say about all this when you two got home and had a private discussion? We didn't talk about it again. I've just been trying to weigh things out on my own for the last few days. I wasn't sure how I should try to talk to her about it or if that was the best idea. In reply. Cap, does it? I mean, the only way forward at this point is to talk to your girlfriend. You need to sit down with her and have a frank discussion about the events of the night and what made you uncomfortable. How she responds to your concerns will tell you almost everything you need to know. The main thing I would be concerned about when starting the conversation is that your girlfriend seems like she might be quick to brush off any of your concerns without hearing them out. If she does that, you need to push back. Make it clear that you need to be heard on this issue and that she needs to take you seriously here. Then really, you just need to first of all tell her that you found a lot of her actions with Jordan to be not only inappropriate, but hurtful to you. Establish boundaries as well. Be explicit, the hand-holding, pressing their foreheads up against one another, etc. all goes far beyond what best friends do with each other. I think your best bet is to mostly frame the conversation around that. What you do from there really depends on how your girlfriend reacts to that. I can see it going one of two ways. This would be the ideal situation, but maybe she genuinely did not realize what she was doing in that environment. She was in a weird church cult for what seems like a decent chunk of her life. It's possible that she sees that behavior as normal and not at all concerning. That doesn't excuse the behavior, but it could go a long way to alleviate your concerns. She goes on the defensive and claims you are exaggerating what happened. You're just being jealous. That's just how their relationship is. I'd say that if she immediately responds with being defensive, then that tells you more or less all you need to know. Either way though, you need to talk to her, and she needs to understand that her actions were inappropriate. It might be tempting to sweep it under the rug if she tries to laugh it off. After all, how often are you really going to be interacting with this Mark asterisk person anyway? But if you're really considering a long-term thing with this girl, you need to think in the long term. Say you do get married to this girl, you really want to fully commit yourself to someone who you believe would drop you for someone else in a heartbeat. Thanks for this comment. This gives me a lot of good stuff to think about. A couple of people have mentioned that her behavior around might have a different context than I thought because of how they grew up. Not that that means I should let it go and not tell her that it bothered me, but that maybe she didn't realize that it doesn't seem normal, and maybe it's not as much as a sign of something as I thought. So I might start by just bringing up to her. I think that could be a good idea. There are comments on how inappropriate GF's behavior was. Ali_cat 222. I may get some hate for this, but I'm AF whose best friend is a guy, and I don't even do more than give him a quick hug before we part after hanging out. That may just be me, but I couldn't imagine holding hands and touching foreheads together, especially if my so was there if I had one. How does growing up with someone equate to needing to hold hands, touching forearms, etc.? To me, that comes off as disrespectful. Now, having said that, though, I do believe the best thing to do is talk to her. Ignoring it won't get you anywhere, and I will admit that the way I may view things doesn't mean that's the way she viewed it, nor necessarily was trying to be flirtatious either. The only way to work through things in a relationship is letting your partner know how you feel in situations. If you don't discuss things that you may be feeling uncomfortable with, you won't have a good continual foundation for your relationship otherwise. I wish you all the best and hope you can work things out. Rezuar. Touching foreheads and holding hands? I mean, the rest of it is over the line, but maybe excusable in some way. But this, I don't know how you didn't say something when it happened. It just seems so bizarre to me for friends to do that. There has to be something more. It just doesn't make any sense otherwise, no matter how you try and view it. Maybe they think of each other as the one that got away. Maybe some kind of tragedy. Romeo and Juliet. Right person, wrong circumstances kind of thing. What I really think is that at the least, this will happen every time Mark makes an appearance in your lives, and at worst you'll always be second to him, whether he's there or not. Aliendo Elise. My jaw dropped when I read that, for real. Nora Ray J. Same, I could not imagine being op at that moment. It would make me cry if my partner did that to me. Sidri. She obviously carries a torch that will never go out. If knowing your runner-up is something you can live with, give it a shot. But 2 years isn't long and there's a lot of years left. If something changes later and an opportunity opens up, she'd go running. That's the big thing. That scares me, because I do think that I could maybe live with the fact that there was someone else before me and that she eventually did choose me over him. But then I think about what could happen if Mark decided that he was ever going to leave the church like Jordan did, which doesn't seem like it's going to happen from the way they both talk about it. But then I know that I'm a different person now at 29 than I was when I was 26, so it's not impossible for him to change his mind. And then if that really was the only reason that Jordan was with me, of course she'd leave to go be with him like what she always wanted. First update. 2 days later. I talked to Jordan on Wednesday night. The TLDR update to the situation is that I didn't break up with her after we talked about everything. I feel like that would be too much of an overreaction for what's actually going on. I do still think I was right to be upset about what I saw happening at dinner on Saturday, and Jordan didn't disagree with me about that. But I think I did jump to the wrong conclusion that it meant that she secretly actually wanted to be with Mark more than she wanted to be with me. Now that we've talked it out, I don't think there's a reason to end what's otherwise the best relationship I've ever had, and I'm glad that I didn't just immediately trust my instincts, because there was more going on with the situation that I didn't really understand, that Jordan has since told me, and now I do feel like she can be given some grace in this situation, assuming nothing like this ever happens again. So thanks for the advice, especially for everyone who told me to just talk to her before I made a big decision. So when we talked, I decided to take the main piece of advice that I got from everyone and start by telling Jordan that my feelings were hurt by the way she treated me at dinner with Mark, and then see how the conversation went. From there, it turned into a very long talk, so I don't want to try to remember exact quotes and get them wrong, but here are the important things. I repeated to Jordan some of what I wrote. Felt excluded by her and Mark, especially because they were being overly touchy-feely with each other to the point where it made me uncomfortable. Jordan seemed surprised, like she didn't even notice that she and Mark were touching each other that much, but then she thought about it and said that I was right and apologized. She said that Mark is always really touchy with everybody and not just her. I asked, and so she didn't even think about it, but that she wished I would have said something at the time because she didn't realize they were being that obnoxious. I said that was part of what bothered me, because I thought that normally she would have noticed something like that, but she was acting so different around Mark and not paying any attention to anything else, including how I was feeling, that it was honestly just made me question which one of us she cared about more, or if she cared about him as more than just a friend. Jordan apologized more and said that she could understand why it would look that way to me, but that she loves me and cares more about me than anyone else in the world, and that she didn't mean to act like that or make me feel that way. She said that she was trying to not make Mark feel like a third wheel because of being a single guy out with a couple, but obviously it backfired and just made me feel like the third wheel instead, which wasn't what she wanted to do either. After that, Jordan explained a lot to me about her history with Mark, and basically as she explained it, she said that she fully admits she cares about him as more than just a normal friend, but she says that it's not in a romantic way. She said that's why she always specifically refers to him as her best friend and not just as her friend, and said that she would use the phrase "he's like my brother" if it weren't for the fact that she once had an actual brother, R.I.P., so she won't use that phrasing for anyone else. According to Jordan, the main thing that happened to make her and Mark so close was that when she was 17 she tried to kill herself, and that was actually when everyone else in the community stopped talking to her, and Mark was the only person who didn't. For the next couple of years, until she moved, he was literally her only friend, and she said that he checked on her every single day to make sure she stayed alive, which is also when they got into the habit of talking on the phone so much. And also, apparently during this time, Mark's parents thought they were dating and made a big deal about how they shouldn't be, and that's why she made that remark during dinner, apparently calling Jordan a godless heathen is something that Mark's mom said. I did tell Jordan that Mark basically said to me that he thought the two of them would be married if she had stayed in the church, and I asked her if she thinks that maybe Mark is in love with her, even if she doesn't feel the same way. She said definitely not, and I don't think she was being dishonest. I really don't agree with her, but I think she genuinely believes that Mark isn't into her in any way apart from friendship. Her opinion of the situation is that she also thinks she and Mark would eventually have gotten married if she had never left the church or moved, but from her perspective, it would have been more because of peer pressure than anything else, and she doesn't think it would necessarily have been a good thing. She thinks Mark was just being honest about that, and that possibly from his perspective, he thinks he and Jordan would have made a good couple, but he's probably thinking that because he's just assuming that in that scenario she'd be the perfect church wife, so there's no reason why they wouldn't be a good couple. But then the big thing that happened at the end of the conversation is that Jordan told me that Mark is coming back through our city on his way home from this trip, and so she was going to invite him to hang out with the two of us again, but she said that if I'm going to be uncomfortable with him around, then she won't ask him. A lot of people were saying that if she didn't offer to cut contact with him or to cut down on contact with him. It meant that she valued him over me, so the fact that she brought up on her own that she wouldn't invite him to dinner with us again because I didn't like it seemed like a really good sign to me. Based on everything else that she said, I do understand why she didn't offer to totally stop being friends with him, and I wouldn't expect her to after what she told me about what happened when she was a teenager. So now I'm deciding to take Jordan's word for it, that although she and Mark are weirdly close, it's for the reasons that she explained to me and not because she's in love with him. I think the fact that she was immediately apologetic instead of defensive was good, and the way she explained everything did make sense to me. I don't necessarily trust Mark, but I do think I can trust Jordan. But I am going to watch and see if it seems like she's still talking to him as much as she used to, or if anything changes or sounds different. I'm not going to be controlling and tell her that she can't talk to him or that she has to talk to him less, but I want to see if me talking to her about all of this causes her to act any differently at all. I'm kind of thinking she might realize on her own that the way Mark acts towards her actually does seem like he likes her more than a friend now that I've brought it up. But I don't know. It could be that things just go back to exactly the way they were before, and I won't know if anything has actually changed until the next time Mark is around in person. But I don't think that's something I should keep worrying about before it happens. Relevant comments signal _BlackBerry 326. Holding hands with your opposite sex friend and pushing your foreheads together in front of your monogamous partner is wild, but do you homie Tamerlane _Tully. Well, Reddit. Congratulations, we definitely accomplished nothing here. There's some sober pushback in the comments. Oop mostly stands his ground. Pixel _Spartan 117. Oop, did she acknowledge that the touching by her was inappropriate? I do not see how she could not have recognized how touchy they were in her lack of physical touch with you. Like many others have said, I'm not sure Jordan was being completely honest with you. Did you ask her how she would have felt in a reverse situation? If the three of you meet again, you might want to think about excusing yourself to go to the bathroom or something during the meal and instead hide and film their interaction while you are gone. See if Jordan changes how she interacts when you are not there. I say to capture it on your phone because then you have it to show her if you break up. If she interacts appropriately while you are gone, then she may have gotten the message. She should also start limiting her interactions with him, phone text, because that relationship is not healthy and no so should have to deal with that if you two get married. It needs to be dealt with now. She did acknowledge that all the touching was inappropriate. Yes. When she actually thought back on how much they were doing it and how over the top it was, she was embarrassed and realized she shouldn't have started acting like that just because Mark makes it seem normal. I didn't ask her how she'd feel in the reverse situation because it seemed like she got it immediately as soon as I told her how it made me feel. Unleashed 99. I am glad you spoke up, and I am glad you received some clarity on the situation. Unfortunately, I think your girlfriend is lying. The problem is that she is not really lying to you. I mean, she is, but really she's lying to herself. If she is talking to this guy every day and not even realizing how physical she got with him when they met up after being physically separated for so long, she has been lying to herself for so long that the lies to you were just shrapnel from the nuclear lies she keeps telling herself. Obviously they aren't a compatible couple long-term with their core beliefs being so different, but they fed their emotional bond for so long that their connection is intense. Dude, she didn't even realize she was physically wrapped into this man with her long-term boyfriend right next to her. That speaks volumes. I have been coaching individuals in the infidelity realm long enough to have seen this same story play out 1,000 times now. I pray I am wrong for your sake, op. But I fear if she doesn't entirely cut off Mark, you'll be either here or in our surviving infidelity in the next 2 years with a shocked Pikachu face on saying, just found out my fiance has been cheating with her best friend Mark. I say that and I know it comes out a little snarky, but in all honesty, my heart breaks saying it. Having been through betrayal like that personally, I'd gladly sacrifice many things in my own life to help prevent others from experiencing that same pain. So even if you believe your girlfriend, hold on to a shred of doubt and wonder if the experts might have some wisdom to offer your situation. As I saw someone else mention, the book Not Just Friends by Shirley Glass would be amazingly on point for your situation and might lead you towards some growth here. No matter what you choose, I pray you find peace and joy. Good luck. If the three of us are ever together again, I'll definitely be watching everything, but I don't think there's a chance of that happening for a while. I can admit there's a possibility that Jordan is just wrong about how she feels. After our talk, I do honestly think that's more likely than that she's trying to be dishonest or is gaslighting me. If that turns out to be the case, then that's going to have to be the end of the relationship. But I'm deciding to at least give her a chance here. Specific bag 7401. A lot of what you detail still sounds weird, especially the part where she didn't want to make Mark feel left out because he was visiting with a couple, him being a single man. Mark in no way visited with a couple. If Jordan is so empathetic, read this issue. She sure missed showing any empathy for you. I don't think you will experience much difference with the next encounter with all three of you. You're very enthusiastic to give Jordan a pass. This will continue to haunt you. You don't seem to think you deserve to have this made right. Jordan has a very wide berth. I wish you the best. You just seem to feel you deserve so little. It's so sad. I do agree with you that it still sounds weird, but with more context, I'm just more comfortable with it. Don't get me wrong, I still didn't appreciate being treated like a third wheel at dinner, and I still thought that Mark and Jordan were too handsy with each other, just in general, and I'm not okay with that continuing. But if she's being honest with me that it's not because of romantic feelings, which I think she is, then I think as long as she's willing to have boundaries from now on, after understanding that it made me uncomfortable, I don't think it's as much of a red flag as I thought before. In a lengthy comment, Oop is asked to consider whether it's not a matter of Jordan believable, but that he wants to believe her so strongly that he is subconsciously subverting his standards for judgment. That's a really well thought out comment, and I appreciate you taking the time to write it, and I absolutely do understand why everyone thinks I'm just letting Jordan gaslight me. Honestly, I'd probably think the same thing if someone else was telling me this story, so I can't really blame everyone, but I truly don't think I'm just being steered by wanting to believe her. It's hard to convey everything that happened when we talked into one post, but I'm just very sure that she was being genuine, and it was that convinced me that I could believe that she was saying. It wasn't that I just stopped being objective because that was the easier thing to do. Honestly, I think it would have been easier to keep assuming that what I thought in the first place was true, because honestly, it's easier for me to understand. I do think that Jordan's attachment to Mark is weird and probably unhealthy, and even if she doesn't think so, I think there's more than just friendship going on from his side of things. But I think Jordan is being honest that she's not in love with him and that she wants to be with me and not him, and that was the thing that was making me question the relationship. The other stuff that I do still take issue with, I think, can be worked out as long as Jordan takes seriously that she can't be acting in a way with Mark that disrespects me in our relationship, even if in her head it's not in a romantic way. And from the way our talk went, I think I can trust her to do so. Second update, 2.5 months later. I apologize if this isn't right. I've never tried to post to my profile on here before, but a lot of people wanted an update, and I don't think I'm allowed to post to the original subreddit. The situation seems pretty resolved now, after Mike and Jordan had an argument over everything and are no longer friends. What happened was that, after Jordan told Mark we weren't available to hang out when he came back through our city, he blamed me, saying that he could tell Jordan was only saying no to hanging out because I had a problem with him. Jordan admitted that this was part of the reason, and told Mark that she wanted a bit of space from him because she was trying to be respectful of our relationship. Mark got really offended and kept asking Jordan to explain why him being around was disrespectful to our relationship, and kept pretending not to understand her answers, and then eventually, during the conversation, he started trying to guilt Jordan into making time for him, and told her that she's become a worse person over the years because the Jordan he knew would never blow him off. That upset Jordan a lot, because she took it as Mark saying that she was a bad person since she left the church, and she started crying, and she ended up hanging up on him. Jordan and I talked a lot afterwards. I told her that I thought Mark was toxic because anyone else would have been understanding of what she said. Jordan said that a lot of what he said during the conversation reminded her of being in the church. She said that she couldn't explain it, except that it was his attitude when he tried to argue with her, but that it made her not really want to talk to him, even outside of anything to do with our relationship. Mark texted Jordan the day after asking if she really wasn't going to come see him, and if she was going to pick some boyfriend over her only friend after he's been there for her through everything. Jordan texted Mark back, explaining her point again, and saying that their friendship couldn't be the same anymore as it used to be, now that she was with someone, and that he should understand that. Mark texted Jordan that he couldn't believe she'd treat her best friend like that. Jordan tried to text Mark, saying that a friend wouldn't be guilty of tripping her, but it turned out that he had blocked her number. After that, Jordan was feeling like she'd done something wrong, and was too mean to Mark. But she and I talked about it again, and she realized that she was right to not want to be friends with Mark if he's going to treat her like she owes him loyalty. Jordan then blocked him back, including on all her socials, so that if later he changes his mind and tries to apologize, she can ignore him. A couple of weeks went by, and while I'll admit I was pretty happy about not hearing from Mark, Jordan was really bummed about how everything ended. She said that although she saw now that Mark isn't a good person to have in her life because of his reaction to her trying to set a boundary, she still felt sad and abandoned, and it was bringing back a lot of the same feelings as when she was a teenager, and her other church friends all turned their backs on her. So at this point I asked her if she's ever thought about going to therapy for religious trauma, and she said she'd gone for a few months when she first left the church, but the therapist wasn't really helpful. I suggested that maybe it would be a good idea to try again with a better therapist, because it sounds like all this stuff still bothers her a lot, and Jordan agreed with me and decided to make an appointment. She's had a couple of therapy sessions that she says so far are good, but I don't really ask her for any details on what they talk about, so I can't really update on that part of the situation. Relevant comments. A sick tack. Mark sounds toxic at this point. He sounded iffy before. Honestly, with the way he was so positive he would have been with Jordan, but this is not the way you treat someone who is supposed to be a friend. He wants to be her #1 friend, then he should try actually being a friend and listening. I assume he isn't, because in his religion, the man is supposed to speak, and the woman is supposed to listen. Yes, tell Jordan to try a different therapist. If the therapist isn't working for her, that just means she has the wrong therapist. She can find a good one, and I really hope she does. Agreed, I didn't trust Mark when I thought he was just in love with her, but seeing him be so shitty and demanding really made it clear that he's a page O.S. Julia Valentine. I've been reading these posts since it first came out, and it sucks that it had to turn out this way, but I think it's for the better. Especially the part of her going back to therapy too. Does she have other new friends not related to the church that she can rely on too? Her having her own support system that is separate from you and Mark could also help her. Anyways, wishing you all the best. Jordan seems like a very lovely girl, and I'm glad you both are going strong outside of the trauma. Does she have other new friends not related to the church that she can rely on too? She does. We have a few couples that we're pretty close friends with, and she also has a bunch of friends from her work who I know she talks to about problems and all that stuff.